My guest is a former ambassador, former Nigerian Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Usman Sarki. Good morning to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning. It's a pleasure to join TVC program this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being available for us. I imagine a number of people will be quite optimistic and excited, perhaps, about the example that West Africa, indeed Africa, got in Liberia, where the president there, President George Weah, set an example for Africa in conceding victory to, his opposition challenger, the former vice president of the country under, Madam Johnson Sirleaf. And the interesting thing about this is that it was such a narrow margin of victory. We are told that 50.9%, that is what the president-elect won by, to the incumbent president's 49.1%. I mean, that is the narrowest of margins. Yet, we have the report that President Weah, even before the completion of counting, had decided that there was no way he could make up the difference necessary to win. And before the official result, he had called, the president-elect, now president-elect, and had congratulated him. I thought that was a refreshing change for Africa. So I wanted to ask you, Mr. Ambassador, does this signify that a change is in the offing in Africa?
Well, thank you very much. Let me commend you for addressing this issue of election in West Africa and in Liberia in particular, which is one of the oldest independent countries in our region.
Indeed.
Just for the information of your audience or the viewers, Liberia was established or became independent in 1860, exactly 100 years before Nigeria got her independence. So it is very interesting that today Liberia is living up to expectations in leading the democratic process in our region by actually belying the concept of coups, incessant coups, and other unauthorized, unconstitutional changes of government that seem to characterize the West African region, unfortunately. Liberia's election and the concession or conceding of the elections, the victory to the former Vice President Boakai is a turning point in the democratic advancement of our region. This is because Liberia may be a small country in terms of population, only about 9 million people, but whether it's a small country or large country, what matters is precedence, what matters is example, and what matters is integrity of the process. I have read the congratulatory messages sent by the United States Department of State, by the European Union, by African Union, and other organizations and partners. All of them pointed to the number one, the integrity and credibility of the electoral process. Secondly,
even President Tinubu, as head of ECOWAS, even our President Tinubu.
Oh, yes, exactly. In fact, Ajuring Lele sent me personally the congratulatory message of Mr. President, which I thought is something very important in terms of the leadership position that he is holding today in ECOWAS as chairman of ECOWAS, and also his persistent and insistent echoing of rule of law, constitutionalism, and democratic process. And I think it's very important that Nigeria has taken the lead in congratulating both former President Weah and the incoming President Boakai, and congratulating the people of Liberia for this achievement. If we are to draw a parallel between Nigeria and Liberia, it will be what happened in 2015, when His Excellency President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, graciously conceded to the incoming president who won the election, that is President Muhammadu Buhari, His Excellency GCFR. So in Nigeria, we have set a precedent, happily. But in other areas, I think what we need to do is to fine-tune and perfect our electoral process, number one. And number two, the way officials come into office. There is a lot of contention and disagreements in terms of the way people come to office, the election, the swearing in, and afterwards, you have appeal courts and other legal processes that either nullify or reverse or put into question the validity and integrity of both the process and the election themselves. So we need to, we are a big country, I allow that, but even big countries can learn some things from smaller countries. Indeed. So it is very important for INEC and for Nigerian politicians and especially political parties to borrow a leaf from what has happened in Liberia. Let us not be too arrogant and too full of ourselves that we cannot learn from other people. We must know that Liberia was established long before us, and now they are coming back to their senses in terms of having peaceful democratic transition in the country as the fundamental prerequisite, fundamental corollary to development, to peace and security, and to the progress of democracy. So I'm very happy about the turn of events. The Unity Party, UP, which was led by President-elect Bokaye, and the conference, the CDC, that was led by George Weah, did not actually break into fights across the country. Only a few incidents were reported in about 4 or 5 provinces that led to minor injuries and hospitalizations of some people. Otherwise, the observer missions judged the elections across the board as fair, transparent, clean, peaceful, and with a lot of maturity. And I think it is very important for us to highlight this always, especially you in the media like TVC, for Nigerians to know that elections are not do or die affairs, and that people can win, people can lose. Political parties can win and lose, and yet the country must go on. So that is the lesson that we should learn from what has happened in Liberia.
Indeed. And President Weah, President George Weah himself, as I said earlier, and as you know, he had conceded even before the official declaration of results. And one is still surprised that such President Tinubu noted his statesmanship and his undiluted patriotism in conceding victory, because the margin was ever so narrow, 50.1%. So the other guy had 49 point, what is it now? 49.1%. So the president, our president, had commended this and noted that what President Weah has demonstrated is that the outcome of elections in West Africa need not lead to strife and unrest and all sorts of, anogogiri, interminable court cases. As you said, Liberia has had its problems, but it is still, I think, the oldest independent African country in Africa. And I think it rose up to the occasion this time around, and President Tinubu noted this in his congratulatory message.
Yes, exactly. I think, President Tinubu has a lot of work to do in actually advancing democracy in our region. You remember last week he was in Guinea-Bissau, and I think he has gone to that country 2 or 3 times in the course of his presidency. Guinea-Bissau is a fragile country in terms of the strength of its democracy, with a rested military and very active opposition. So his concern with Guinea-Bissau should actually be translated to other countries in West Africa, so that Nigeria's presence can balance the situation in those countries and indicate to them that we have their welfare at heart and mind, and we will do everything possible in order to defend their democracy and advance the interests of their people. Now, in Liberia, His Excellency President Tinubu has also taken the lead in congratulating the government and the country and the people. Now, George Weah, you have referred to the very slim margin of the victory by Bokai. George, you remember it was the first round of elections was held on October 10th.
That's right.
And according to the Liberian electoral law, is that you have recourse to a second runoff election in the presidential election only. But in the parliamentary election, which also took place at the same time with the presidential election, about half of the Senate was re-elected. So it was first past the post as far as the Senate was concerned. But in the presidency, because there was no clear victory in the first round of October 10, they have to now hold the second round on November 14. And that was what happened. So President Weah read the sign. He did not have a clear majority in the first round as an incumbent president. And in the second round also, no matter how slim the margin was, he could not make the required 50% or more. And sagaciously, and I believe was in conclave with advisors, they came to the understanding that their time was up, the game was up, that he should give up. And very manly, courageously, and in a sportsmanlike fashion, he came out even before the final collation and announcement of the results to congratulate Vice President-elect Bokai and conceded defeat. And I think that is the essence of democracy.
It is.
What we need to learn in Nigeria is for our political parties, first and foremost, to follow their own rules, their own constitutions, to abide by those, and then to follow the electoral law in Nigeria. If that is done, divisive utterances, the record to cause regularly, sometimes even with very on flimsy excuses and grounds, can be avoided. Here, I have to point out that a lot of unnecessary dust was raised around the victory of President Bola Tinubu, which should not have actually been so if we are better organized in terms of our elections and electoral processes. I do hope all of us, both the ruling party, the opposition parties, and the general populace in Nigeria will learn something from that. That is, not to take democracy as something solid and unbreakable. Democracy can be broken, democracy can be brought to its knees by discontent, by disgruntlement, by argumentative dispositions, and by disagreeing with the laws of the land. We have reached a point in Nigeria today, people are even questioning the integrity of our courts.
Yes.
This is a highly inflammable and dangerous situation. Just yesterday, or this morning, I was reading on social media somebody accusing the court of undermining or challenging the decision of the court in regards to the Plateau State governorship election. Can't Nigerians give the court the benefit of the doubt and assume that whoever sits on the judgment chair must have a modicum of integrity to be able to pass a judgment that is based on the evidence before him or her? Can't we do that? Can't people agree that every Nigerian who presents himself for election must have the fundamental right to do so, and also must feel beholden to his country before presenting himself or herself for election? I think we have to draw a line to form the baseline of the type of disposition we will bring to politics in Nigeria. Liberia has taught us that you can win and at the same time you can lose without breaking your country apart.
Indeed.
Without undermining the rule of law, without disturbing the peace, and without actually going out to create confusion in the land. What President George Weah did was actually something that is akin to what President Jonathan did. And both of them will be held in high esteem by their citizens and by Africans and the rest of the international community as time goes on.
Indeed. And the president of ECOWAS, you know, there have been so much, from his point of view, and indeed from all Africans' points of view, unfortunate news of the coups, the change of governments by non-democratic means. And so this must be a real beacon of hope. So much so that when President Tinubu was congratulating Liberians, especially when he was congratulating both the incumbent president, President George Weah, and the president-elect, President-elect Joseph Boakai, he also congratulated the people of Liberia and thanked them. He thanked them in his message that was that the president sent. I thank the people of Liberia for peacefully exercising their rights and implore them to remain steadfast in the pursuit of democracy. Now, where this resonates is the fact that in 2017, the incumbent president, George Weah, he actually won by 62% of the vote. 62%. And now the people of Liberia have now said that, okay, well, there's so many circumstances. There were allegations of corruption in government, the promise that they had expected, they didn't see, and all of that. But the people now said, fine, from that 62% with which you won, well, this time, we're not giving you more than 49.1%, and the country was not torn apart. So it was in that sense, I imagine, that the president was congratulating all of Liberia, the people who had, it was the people who actually gave this mandate by their votes. And President Weah had actually gone on air and had enjoined all of his supporters to follow his example and support the winner. I mean, it was almost as if, are we still in Africa? Are we still in Africa where people want to badmouth us? Now this has happened.
Yes, I think, for a change, pleasantly, I must say, we have this positive report now. Apart from the very dismal spectacle we have seen in Niger Republic, in Burkina Faso, in Guinea, and in Mali, where military juntas have taken over forcefully.
Yes. And
before then, I must say, where elected presidents wanted to subvert the constitution by introducing tenure elongation that destabilized the system. So on both issues, President Tinubu has spoken against both tenure elongation by supposedly elected presidents who change the constitution to continue, and also military coups by people entrusted to defend the president and the country and the constitution. So it's no surprise that His Excellency President Tinubu has appealed to the sense of patriotism of people, particularly congratulating Liberian people. Democracy is essentially about the people.
Indeed. One moment, I beg your pardon, Your Excellency, I beg your pardon for interrupting you, but let me bring on Mohammed in Abuja who wants to join the program. Good morning to you, Mr. Mohammed.
Good morning, Okliori. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, and then I greet your guest for reminding you that George Weah is not the first to set this example. So for that, I want you to correct that your headline. George Weah is not the first to set the example of calling his winner or his opponent before even the election is concluded. Goodluck Jonathan is the first African leader to call his opponent before even the election was concluded. Even INEC did not even announce the result. He called. But this one, George Weah, he has to wait for their INEC to announce the result. And that only is for that. Then there is a Twitter handle that I used to follow on social media, and he's a full supporter of Peter Obi. He tweeted last 2 days that President Tinubu was rushed to Germany for hospital. I want to remind him that today President Tinubu was live addressing the German whatever Congress that they are doing there. So he should see him in the meeting there, not in the hospital. Please, let's behave well in Nigeria. Let's wish our leaders good every time. Let's pray for our leaders. We should not be wishing people dead every time. That is how some of them did to Buhari, and Buhari is still in the now, shining and progressing. Please, let's be positive in our country every time. We should not be always wishing our leaders bad. Please, that is my advice. Thank you, and have a nice deliberation.
Well, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. I think the point you were making is that we should not be selling ourselves short. After all, we shouldn't forget the President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan example as well. But you see, what our caption is simply saying is that, George Weah sets example for Africa, and I don't think you can deny that is indeed what has happened. But thank you very much. Nevertheless, I hear what you are saying. So, Ambassador, well, you heard his interjection that we ourselves, there are times we have set an example. And yeah, I guess you can't wish away President Goodluck Jonathan's example. But in the current climate that you have just been talking about, political climate in Africa, that it didn't go awry. I think that is what we are commending. We're commending the people. We're commending the people of Liberia, whose mandate was allowed to stand. They changed their mandate in 2017. They said that George Weah should go to State House with 62% of the vote, and then now in this one over the weekend, now they said by 49%. They say we're not too happy, and that we now want to try the man that we didn't use the last time around. And yes. So
yes, go on, please.
Yes, so letting the vote speak, and that was probably why President Tinubu congratulated the people of Liberia as well for the peaceful way in which they, conducted the election.
Yes, President Tinubu, as a Democrat, he knows and he realizes that democracy is all about the people. The choice of the people, the decision of the people, the mandate of the people. And if you remember, his electoral mantra was, on your mandate, I stand. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was his the campaign slogan of President Tinubu. And the mandate he was referring to is that of the people. And he respects that opinion of the people. And that's why throughout his discussions, his comments, he always appeals to the people for their better sense of judgment. And in the case of Liberia, his address to the people of Liberia, I believe, if I may respectfully recommend, that as chairman of ECOWAS, he should also attend the inauguration of President Boakai and send the same message to the people of Liberia, congratulating them on their patriotism, on their enthusiasm to uphold democracy, and for the peaceful way the transition had taken place. I think that would give a lot of confidence to the people of Liberia and reinforce the strength of the democracy in this country if they see our Nigeria appearing on the same podium with their president-elect being sworn in and delivering a goodwill message for Nigerians. But that will depend on the invitation that he may receive from the government of Nigeria. That said, I think it's very important that, as the speaker Mohammed said, Nigeria should not be deprecating and undervaluing their leaders. It has become almost a vogue in Nigeria today, at every instance, to condemn our leaders, to criticize our leaders blindly, to even insult and abuse them. This is not correct and this is not right. They cannot get the change that they desire for if they are not cooperative and if they are not actually wishing and praying well for themselves and for their countries. All right. Whoever becomes a leader does not become a leader by his own strengths, by his own machinations, by his own wiles and guides, but first and foremost by the choice and grace of God the Almighty.
Indeed.
It is God who makes leaders. It is God who appoints people. and gives people the chance to serve. And if people serve, then they are doing God's bidding to serve well, to hold what is called amana or trust. And if they don't serve, they will be answerable to God, because God gave them that trust to hold on his behalf, to lead the people to safety and prosperity. So, and the same day, people should realize that abusing and criticizing their leaders always will actually lead to a condition whereby what they are wishing on the leader will now fall on them.
Indeed, become a
So
self-fulfilling prophecy.
we have to be metaphysical in some of these issues as Africans and people who believe in God and our faith.
Indeed.
So let us rally around, whether it's a local government chairman, whether it's a state governor, whether it's a member of House of Assembly or House of Rep or Senate, whether indeed is the president. Whoever sits in that chair bears a lot of responsibility. And we have to realize that responsibility is carried by him or her on our behalf. Let us be supportive of them, encourage them, and not to really discourage them through incessant complaints, attacks, criticism, vilifications, and abuses.
Okay.
That will not take